Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening from the Far East, and good morning for the rest of the world. Good. Hello, Eva. How are you?
Hello, very good, Alberto. Good
Excellent. I see you
afternoon.
look great. Good. So today is an important day for us because we will talk about something very peculiar, but something also very strategic and so difficult to talk about. The subject of today is Chinese business mindset. Okay, so let's go straight to the point. Today we are going to have a very important guest for me. His name is Jin Shu. He's an American-born Chinese, and he has been dealing with these issues so many times that he's going to finish his book soon and publish it. Okay, but let me tell you what I mean for the Chinese mindset first. Okay, Chinese mindset is everything that goes around the way Chinese people think, and is not, let me tell you, is not what they think they want to think, or if they do it on purpose to think it that way. Chinese mindset is simply the way they have been grown up. They've been talking to each other. They've been handling things from childhood to business, okay, and their purpose in life. So their position within the society and the way they communicate to get results. So because we have to always keep in mind that for Chinese people, the most important thing is reaching the goal, scoring what your plan, and getting to the point where the result is the ultimate situation for you. So the Chinese mindset that we will talk today is all about business and everything that regards a business. But before anything else, while we wait for a few more people to get online, by the way, there was a mistake made by me that we scheduled the event at 1:30 and instead of 1 on all the channels. And so I was able to go live on YouTube and Facebook, but unfortunately I couldn't change the schedules on LinkedIn because LinkedIn doesn't allow me to do so. So I'm afraid that that things didn't go well. So we have an interactive Miro board. Eva, would you like to explain a bit more about it? In the meantime, here is the link to our Miro board.
Sure. So join us, please, by clicking this link, and you will see a virtual whiteboard with a lot of post-it notes, sticky notes, digital cards, however you call them. And there's some slide in the space where you can put your ideas, thoughts, and questions regarding China mindset. So what we intend to do with this board is collect your thoughts while we are doing this webinar. So I see now a few people here. Welcome to the board. It's nice to see you. So please put your questions, thoughts, ideas next to these slides that you can see. Like there is big slide, China business mindset.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm on the board as well. Okay, and it's very interesting because I always get a lot of people to come with some kind of prejudice sometimes when we talk about China and the things that goes behind. Okay, so let's share a bit the screen of a mirror board. Okay, which is going to be this one. Okay, and yeah, here it is. Hold on a second. Today, guys, I'm telling you, I'm having technical problems somehow, but we're gonna sort them out. So don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. The important is, like all the Chinese say, that is perfect is not fast enough. Okay, and here we are. So we are on the mirror board where we're gonna talk about the different situation we may face, and the solution to them, because I'm not here only to think and talk about the problems. I'm here to talk also about how you can solve the situations. Okay, so let's go on with the first things. Okay, so how many of you have found themselves in a situation where they thought they had it done. They thought they had an agreement. They thought that all the MOU, the memorandum of understanding, the letter of intent, and the orders, the bill of materials, all the details, the order was done. Everything was clear. And once, the same day, if not the day after, that everything was signed and clear, and you thought that you had to start business with your Chinese partner, then they came out with a solution like, can we change fees, or we would like to have a different situation, or so on. Let me tell you what happened to me. It was back in the time, the very first shock I had was when I was selling my very first company to a Taiwanese enterprise, a public listed company in the stock market in Taiwan wanted to buy my business. And we have been on for probably a year talking about these, and the last 6 months were so intense that we had a lot of small situation coming up. I want more this, I want more that, I want the warehouse this big, I want the location with that. We will only buy and pay you if you reach this result. So all of the points that they listed, were accomplished. So between us was obviously a bargaining, but the understanding at the end of the day was simply good. So I was able to deliver the situation they asked me for. And the day of the handover and the payment, of course, we were sitting, I had my own lawyers coming in from Hong Kong and from Italy. And they had their own lawyers and so on, big meeting rooms, all respects, the TV, and everything was there. And the moment before they were ending the check, the paycheck to me, they just go like, yes, Alberto, we just have a small change in the contract. We agreed on 51.49, where 51 is for you, Alberto, and 49 is for us. But we had a strong pressure from our board of directors to invert the percentage of a sharing. And I go like, come on, guys, you don't wanna play with me like that. I mean, we went on for over a year. We agreed that I will keep the majority because I will always be the managing director of a company. I have put so much capital, so many things into it, and you see the results. So why this? Why now? And that was, something like I really wanted to, as an Italian with my bad temper, to take the table, pull it up and go like, go to hell. I'm not going to do anything with you. And that's what I did. So it was back in 1995, and I just stepped out of a room without getting the money I was promised. And I tell you, it was a six-figure number. So it was an important asset for me to bring on. But I was backed up by how strong I was with the company and the fact that I accomplished so much in so short times. And I was so proud of a result that I was able to bring home that at the end of the day, I said, okay, it's their loss. It's their bad. It's they change the rule, and I don't care. Okay, I keep on going with my business. Would it be today? My answer would be completely different, and I can tell you why. But anyway, this is just to give you an example how things can go differently just because their mindset, their way of thinking is completely different from us. Now, I am not saying this is good, and I'm not saying this is bad. What I'm saying is that things happen, and you need to be always ready to plan your exit strategy or your plan B, plan C, and plan D. So going back to China and to how they think about things, one thing I learned, it is that China is what I used to call the no problem country. Yeah, every time there was an issue to sort out, they were coming to me and go like, oh, Meiwanti. Okay, Meiwanti, what's Meiwanti? Meiwanti means literally no problem, no questions to ask, okay? So if there is no problem, okay, but I see the problem within it, okay? Why is it going to be so difficult to manage it? Why is it going to be such a situation? Now, going back to the point, is it really male on TV answer we want to give us? I mean, does that really means no problem? Or does that mean something else? Well, the answer is this. The answer is that it actually means there is no reason to talk about it now because I don't have an answer for you. Or with my philosophy that it came out within the time, it goes like, if there is a solution, then there is no problem because you got the solution. But if there is no solution, why the hell do you want to bring up the problem? Move on and do something else. Now, I understand, and trust me, I truly understand how deep this thought may hurt your feeling. Because if there is a thing that I don't see clear, it is obviously that I want to clear it out. It is obviously that I want to make it stand for. Now, remember last webinar, we said, okay, China is not the place for cheap products. China is a place for any products, and it is as cheap as you ask them to do it cheap. So today I'm telling you, China is the no problem country as long as you are able to deeply understand what they really mean about no problems and how the country can be doing something for you and the Chinese can be doing something for you. Now, how do we solve the situation? The situation is that Chinese and their community have enormous number of resources to sort out things, but not always these resources are applicable, and not always what we think it should be logical to apply can be done within their method, within their organization, within their infrastructures. And for this reason, it is so important for us to understand that we will have to find a compromise. So if I tell you there is no problem, that means that they may want to give you another message. And again, we go back to what I call the circular logic to get answers, okay? So you don't have to address the problem straightforward, but you need to address the problems on a side way. So you need to go around the problem to understand what the possible solution to it is. Sometimes there is no solution to the problem. And for that, you need to enter with your exit strategy and get things done in a way where you probably need to step back a bit and need to look to things from the outside, okay? Now, let me ask Eva, you have been in China for so long, okay? Did it ever happen for you a situation where the no problem came out and there was actually a problem in front of it and it was only a blind could have not seen it?
Of course, many times.
How did you manage it?
Many times. So even in a daily life on the street, as a foreigner, when you're trying to find a way around, and you're simply not able to say it. So there is a way to do it the way we did it. We're writing down, right? Copying the names of the streets and then showing it to taxi drivers or to passengers, and then on the street, people who were passing by and asking, where is this place? And they would go, no problem, just go straight. So you actually get an answer and think you just need to go straight. But of course, direction is not, the location is not just straight. There is many more steps you need to take. Many situations in taxi as well, the same thing. Taxi driver just says, no problem, I'm going to take you there, and takes you to a completely different place because he doesn't understand the handwriting or he doesn't understand the language, right?
I remember
it's everywhere.
I remember one time, Eva, I was in Italy for a short business trip, and my wife, she was in China, and she took a cab to go to an appointment, and she handed the business card with the address to the cab driver, and then she relied on the cab driver. Then after a while, she realized that he was taking her somewhere else, completely somewhere else, in a place that she couldn't even figure it out which part of Shenzhen it was. And it was incredible because she had a immediate reaction on calling me. It was 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for me in the middle of the night. And she was going like, Alberto, I've got a problem. I mean, this guy is taking me somewhere and I don't know. And there were no GPS and nothing. So I asked her, okay, tell me exactly what you see outside. And luckily, she was passing by a factory that I knew very well where it was. And it was exactly the opposite direction on where she had to go. So I said, okay, hand the phone to the driver. And I was like, okay, I got a GPS on the car. I know exactly where you're taking my wife. So you better stop, drop her off, okay? And then you better go out and leave, okay? And it was very aggressive to him. The guy immediately stopped because I gave him indications, straight indication of where he was and the whereabouts. So he kind of suspected that I was watching him. And he stopped the car immediately. She got on another cab. I gave the address, and she got fine there. But you see, these things happen, okay? But she had a 30 minutes panics where there was a problem, and the guy was going like, "Oh, me want it," you know, like he knew what he was doing. Well, these kind of things that happen in daily life, they happen also in daily business, and this is exactly what we are going to face.
Would you mind sharing a little bit the image, the slide that you put in?
Yeah, exactly.
On another side, when we talk about no problem, and this is maybe a bridge to the business from daily life, is I also fell in love with that no problem attitude when we talk about getting things done. And I got so used to it in China that things simply happen because people are very resourceful, skilled, smart, work fast, work together to make things happen. So when I went back from China to Europe and tried to do things simple like printing wine labels, it was always a frustration. It was very slow. I just got used to this mentality in China. Really, when you talk about how things are done in terms of business, that no problem attitude is really, really strong.
Absolutely, and it is also important to understand that it is always up to us on the way we come out with the problem, and we will be able to sort out the situation only when we make peace with ourselves and with our anger attitude, and we'll try to put our minds into their shoes. So wearing their shoes and knowing what is going on with their way of thinking, where they know they made a mistake, they know they are losing face, and they don't want to admit it, okay? So it is also our responsibility to get a proper result when we are talking to them. And doesn't matter we're talking to the taxi driver, as we made an example, or to the general manager of a company, be it a manufacturer, so our suppliers, or be it a distributor, so our customers. It is always very important to make them feel confident and correct on what they do. Okay, and they probably have a reason that we don't understand. Sometimes that reason, we will never get it. But if it's gonna work for them, then it's gonna work for us, okay? And we need to come to a compromise. Now, getting to a compromise, sometimes it's stressful. It's very stressful. And it's also, how to say, not the easiest part of a game, but it is exactly what we need to do. Okay, understanding what's their position, understanding what's their situation around, and then come up with a proposal. Now, if we want
How do you
to
do that? I have a question for you, Alberto. How do you do that if you don't speak the language? How do you compromise if you don't speak the language?
Well, it's definitely you need someone that helps you speaking the language. And more than a translator, you need an interpreter. That really means someone that can interpret not only the words and translate it to you, but also the meaning within it. Let me tell you, I had to learn Chinese. I didn't go to China, but I spoke Chinese. I actually, even my English wasn't that good at that time. It's not good now, so think about that time. And I realized that during the many meetings that I had, that only partial information were translated to me by my secretaries. And the partiality of the message that I was getting to was not enough for me to come up with a definition of a problem or a definition of a solution. And I was very much frustrated. So I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn the language, and I was really motivated by it. Even in particular, after something that really hurt me somehow. There was this important suppliers of mine that I ordered a specific design product, and every time he was looking at me, he was telling something and then laughing, and the secretary never translated the meaning of it. And I understood that it was something offensive to me, and he was just simply calling me how they used to call most of the Chinese, of the Taiwanese at that time. I was in Taiwan. They used to call most of the foreigners, because we were big, and we definitely were pale, and we definitely were looking like what they call pigs. So tapaichu, and I was a big white pig to them. Okay, and they knew it was an offensive thing, but they also thought that the secretary would never let them lose them face towards these things. But I realized that it was something very, very offensive toward me, and I didn't like it. And so that was the strongest motivation I had to go ahead and get the things done. Now, going back to us, I don't see our guest yet on our live streams, but it's very early in the morning. Jinshu is going to connect with us from Orange County in California. So it's about 5 o'clock in the morning there. So I think he's going to be joining us very, very, very soon. Anyway, the beautiful things about China is that the imprevable can be more imprevable than you could ever think. So whatever is going to happen to you, okay, can always get worse if you don't get out of your position and start to look at it as a situation that might. Yes, we talk about how important it is letting your Chinese partners don't lose their face, and this is called guanxi. The guanxi, it's often translated with the word relationship. Now, you know that relationship is a matter of knowing each other. So you and I, Eva, we know each other. We have been knowing each other for several years now, and we have a good relation, okay? But it was only when we started to think about a situation. The Latin, the Romans used to say do des. That means I do something for you in change of you do something for me, that we found our synergy together. Okay, so if we talk about the guanxi, is not exactly the relationship part of the game, but it's more likely the reciprocity of doing business together. Okay, so I believe that if we look at the guanxi more like a reciprocity situation where I can do something for you and you can definitely do something for me, we will be able to install a relationship with your suppliers, with your customers, and this installment has really strong foundation. Okay, and this is so important. This is so important because it makes it easier for everybody. They know that you're working for them to reach what you can call a greater good, and also they are working their really maximal to get the same results. And the results, this is also very important. You always have to think, what are the real results that they want? Is it that they want to just deliver the products to you and cash in the payment? Or is it that they want just to buy your products because you have a big brand and big and famous brands, and so they just want to sell and make money with it? Or is it else? So these things need to be able to understand how it works and why it should be so much seen from the outside, and put yourself in their shoes and trying to understand their environment, what's going on, and why things get so much involved. Now, going further with our discussion, do we have any interesting question? I can see that there is some interaction on the board. Is there any questions or any thoughts about what we just said? Did anyone contribute, Eva?
Let me just check.
Yes.
Let's see. Do we have any questions here? No questions yet. If you would like to leave questions, just double click on a note here. We have someone on the note here. Just double click on the note and write your question.
Obviously, you can write your questions. Yeah, obviously, you can also write your questions directly on the Facebook and on the YouTube streaming. But we will read them immediately, and they will appear just like this, for instance. We got China Communication, they give us a smile. Okay, great. Fantastic. Okay, and the same is with Catherine Reed, but she also have a laugh. Eventually, Catherine has a lot of experience, and she knows what is doing. And here is a question from Catherine. Okay, so I think using reciprocity were out of fashion a bit as a description for guanxi, when the topic of compliance started to come up, as it easily misunderstood. Yes, I do agree with you, Catherine, and I believe that you have a strong motivation about it. Still, the reciprocity is not only a technical part of a deal. What I mean about reciprocity is really something that needs to be deeply understood in the root of what the counterpart needs, okay? Usually, the big mistakes we make when we go and talk to our Chinese counterpart is that we just need to obtain our results, and we don't really care much about what the result opportunity is given from the others. What does that mean? It means that if you want to sell products, okay, and you found the right partner that you want to sell products to, then you will put all the condition in place so that those products can be bought by your partners and can be distributed. But the question is, are we sure that the only intentions of your partner is to buy your products, to sell them and distribute into the Chinese territory? Is that the only purpose of a deal? Or is there something more? What do we know about our counterpart? What is it their really actual situation, their financial situation? Do they need us or do they not? Do they think that they can do better than you if they only could take care more, or do they not? So this situation comes up often. Even yesterday, I was talking to an important fashion brand in Italy, and they said, we have had a good understanding with our possible partners. We signed the MOU and NDA, and we all have everything in place to start the distribution of the products in China. And it was a great start until COVID came, and then the whole things start to shake. And since a year and a half now, we are stopped and we haven't done anything. Now, but the question that came up to my mind is, okay, let me understand. You said that you were going to sign an important deal with this distributor who has 1,200 shops around the country, and it was so important that only COVID could take it off of the table. there is something that doesn't come up. The things don't add up to me. Do you know what the real situation is? Do you know what happened to their 1,200 shops? Haven't moved onto online, and if they did, with what image, with what brand? Are they on any marketplace? Are they doing something online beside the retail shops that they have? You know, they are on-site shops. Is there something that doesn't turn back to you as a normal? Because, you know, China froze everything for about a couple of months, 2 to 3 months, and then, you know, by June 2020, they were all back to normal, if we can say so. And the economy in China has increased so much that it's been such an important year for them that it was 18.3% increase compared to the last year, the first quarter, 2021, at an increase in everything for about 18.3% compared to the same period of last year. Now, I gave him these questions, okay, and I asked him to think about it. Obviously, these clients will come back to me and they will give me some information about what they think, but we will never know the answer of a correct answer until we will do a deep search, a deep market research of what things are, what the company is doing, what are their sales, what about their shops, and everything. And these things has to be done really on site. Only then you will be able to eventually go back to the table and deal with them and propose them some situation like, okay, now I've got this for you, but I need this back from your side. Because it is not just like I've got the goods and you got the shops, so let's make a business. It's not as simple as that. And these things need to be understood very clearly. So there is always a long run to go, and it always has to be, you know, adjustable with the time. Now, the okay, Jean is not showing up, so we will have all time for us, Eva. This is going to be good. But I see. Okay, this is you writing all the notes on the screen, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there is a lot of people on the board, and it seems they're a little bit shy. I don't see anybody writing yet. So please, if you want to write, just double click on any note here that you see yellow, green, or blue, and write your question or thought or idea that you would like to pass on, just by double clicking on these notes.
Okay, can I do it live? I mean, if I go here and I, for instance, and I double click on here and I say questions, okay, how about dealing directly with the marketplaces? I don't know, a question that comes to me. Okay, so I have just added a question. Is that correct?
That's it.
All right. Great. Okay. So how about dealing directly with the marketplace? Good questions. Okay. There is no way you can deal directly with the marketplaces. You need to have someone that deals with them. And this one can be your enterprise in China, or can be your distributors in China that deals with them. If you want to deal with the marketplaces directly, then you can do that cross-border. But in that case, you have to know that opening up a single shop on a marketplace doesn't mean that you will sell your products on the marketplace. Together with your shop, and together with the high cost that you have to put up front to open up and list all of the products, you have to consider that you may need double, if not more, of initial investments, okay, to do advertising on the same marketplace to get the visitor to come and see you. Okay, so just to give you some details on how things work. So don't be shy, just ask me questions, even if they're not related to this specific matter, but you know, I'm welcome to answer. So fantastic. Okay, so in terms of a mindset that we always think about, the Chinese have grown up in a very different environment compared to us Westerners. If you think that since they were very little, they most probably they were grown up by the grandparents while their parents were working in some other city. So they had difficulties to get in touch with their parents, and the grandparents did an excellent job not to let them miss anything in terms of education, food, and a funny environment to live. At the same time, they started very early with a kindergarten, and a small kindergarten in China can have as many as 10,000 kids. Now imagine having 10,000 kids in the same building. That means that you need to have some rules to work. And so if you think that the situation is in every single block, for every single city, for 1.4 billion people, you understand that it's gonna be a little bit problematic just to leave them free spirits like most of the Westerners do in the kindergartens. So there are rules. People are very, very strict to follow these rules. And, they need to get up very early, go to school very early, rise up flags, do exercise, go inside, and start from the very beginning, from a very young age, to do the characters, or at least the lines that compose the character, vertical lines, horizontal lines, and oblique lines, and so on. And this is done every day until they get to primary school, where they are able to assemble these lines into characters. And also they have to study, and they study a lot. They study very much, because this is what could make the difference for them. And they study so much that when they come at the end of their high school period, if they want to go on with university studies, they have this huge moment, which was just a couple of weeks ago. It's called Gaokao, and the Gaokao is a big exam which will determine if you will pass this exam and be accepted to the university. That means that you can, this event will define your future by being a university graduate, so being a manager, being a white collar, being a director, being an important figures in society, or simply go back and even open up your shops or do things like that. But anyway, having no university titles. That is such a big event that it's most of the time stressed out on the parents and by the parents. Why I say so? Because the parents, since the very first day that the wife was pregnant, they started to save money and work hard and save money to be able to send their kids to the best university. So this whole process, that goes through the first 18 years of life of a young Chinese has always been under pressure. Studying has always been under pressure, very much under pressure. And at the same time, they didn't have any much things to think about, because they didn't have to think about what to dress, what brand to wear, or what kind of diversifications to do, because everything was taken care by the school, from the uniform to the sports to the games and everything. So you understand that people are basically getting into a complete different environment compared to the Western side. Why I say so? I say so because if you are able to put your mind into their shoes and feel the pain, the pressures, the expectations from the society of what these people should do or should be able to do, simply because they are on the in the same group and they need to get out of a mass, okay, then you can understand that for them there must always be a second or a greater goal to follow. So getting the diploma is a greater goal, but the greater goal is getting into the university. Getting a PhD from your university is the goal, but the greater goal is getting a good jobs or getting things done and do things. Getting married is a goal, but is a goal because they need a push to have their kids to come up, so that they can support them and so on, because everything is taking over. The family, the concept, everything is related to each other. I'll give you an example. Every time you walk on the streets of a Western country, European and American as well, okay, it's very often to see that certain restaurants, bars, and shops are handled by Chinese. Okay, and I was always wondering, okay, but how can they start? And how can they manage to open the shop, to open the bar, to buy the license, to run it well, okay, and make money with it, okay? Now, there are many hypotheses about it, but the most real one is that they have a uncle somewhere that lended them the money, and then this uncle is expecting them to pay him back, on a monthly settlement with the money that they cash in. Okay, most probably this uncle is not even a real uncle. Most probably this uncle is a friend of a friend that has a good relationship and a guanxi. So there was a reciprocity issue. So he's doing something because he has got something in the past, and now that he has got his result, he's giving it back. And these things work so well in China because that's how they think, getting a results. For probably buying a bar or buying a restaurant is not their most and biggest ambition. Their biggest ambition is just having a business that give them enough money to get to pay for the schools for their kids. And if that is the way that you could get the results, then fantastic. That's what they're going to do. Now, I am very much open to accept any possible solution to it. And sometimes I get this point when I talk to Westerners. I say, like, yeah, Alberto, but don't you think this is very little ethical? And I said, oh, this is a good question. So tell me, what is ethic for you? Because what is ethic for you maybe is not ethic for them. What is a good things to be doing for you maybe is not a good things to do for them, and vice versa. So I believe that we all have a inner responsibility on doing things. And if we, decompose these puzzles that we have in our mind, okay, and we take all the tiles down, and then we try to reconstruct it, step by step, tile by tile, and we put it up. Maybe the pictures we get out with is different from the original pictures we had in our mind. So we took off our prejudice, and then we start on with our guanxi, with our relationship, or even better, with our reciprocity with our customers and or suppliers in China. I'm saying this because I had to go through this process several times. It wasn't easy for me. I spent 33 years in China, and I went up with the results, and then I crashed down in one day just because something changed and it wasn't me changing it. I went from nothing to having a factory with 400 workers, and then a day after I had to say, my keys don't open the door anymore. But why that? Because there was an argument between me and my partners, and he thought that I wasn't allowed to go enter in again. And there was no way to force it out. Things change very fast. And this is why we need to be able to adapt our mind to the situation. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying that what I see at that specific moment where I have a situation going on, maybe if I step out of my shoes and put them on someone else's shoes, then I see things from a different way. And this is why I decided, after so many years of entrepreneurial experience directly in China with the Chinese, okay, to share my knowledge and my experience with the European and Westerners entrepreneur who want to have and deal business with big projects in China and with China, which means that there is always an opportunity, as we saw during last webinars, okay? And this opportunity can become our greater goal. Now, Eva, I am getting back to you because I see the Miro board is getting a lot of movement. There are a few guests moving on and off. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us?
Yes, so we have a question. Thank you, Julia, who wrote a question. So
okay,
this is a breakthrough. So the question is, a no problem attitude might be okay for Chinese, but how do you teach people from the West to understand this attitude and to be open for this completely different way of living?
Thank you, Julia. This is a very good question. Well, we have a way to sort these things out. I have created a masterclass, and it's called China Business Strategy. And during this masterclass, which is so far I've done it on site, so face to face, but very soon we will have our own masterclass live on screen, so online masterclass. What I do, okay, I go through the process, which I just simply anticipated a bit, okay, and I basically take down all of the prejudice and ideology that we built in our mind. It has to be a very open process where it's not only me talking, but we have to open up and really interact with so many tools that we have in front of us. And these comes out with all the questions, big life questions, okay? But if I don't trust him, what should I do? Okay, or but he cheated on me on the price. What should I do? Or I was supposed to receive these products, and instead he sent me another one which is similar, but it's not exactly what I asked. Or eventually I asked him, he was supposed to sell my products, but he just made the first order, and then I started to sell the same brand, so my brand. And with other product inside, which probably he bought it in China. So he's again cheating on me. This kind of situation, they come up so often. And there is always the need to understand what's the behind the scenes story. Because for every and each of example that I just mentioned, there was a mistake from the very beginning that was committed by the Western counterpart. And this mistake was not a naive mistake, was not something bad, because we're too good no, it was simply because we don't look at the situation and we don't plan a strategy which has to be seriously considered. The capability that we have to organize a strategy before entering the Chinese market is the question point on whether we will be able to succeed or not. I mean, we will calculate it prior of anything. Is this so clear? I mean, we need to decide today what we want to do tomorrow. And we need to plan it in 3 years from now. And we need to be ready to go through the process. And we need to be able to adapt to a situation, to switch the decision, to change the constrictions which we have. We need to be very fluid. We need to be water. We need to adapt to the situation. And this is why it is so important to understand their mindset, because this is exactly what they do. They start with an idea, they verify that the idea is valid, they start to process it, and then they change it throughout the development of the ideas. This is so important for us to be able to change. And there are many different situations that you will find yourself. So there is not one answer for all to your questions, but there are, prejudices, and there are situations, and there are strategies that sometimes are stratagems that we need to put in place the same way they do it with us. So it has to be a fair deal. And it's not the me, I know what I'm doing, and you don't know, so you better do what I want you to do. Because they will tell you, yes, no problem. But then things happen in a different way, and you are going to be the loser part. And I'm sure you don't want to be the losing part. You don't want to be the one that doesn't get any results. Anyway, going back to your questions, do we have more questions, Eva?
We have a thought. Thanks for the stream, Alberto. Stream quality is great. That's fantastic. Thank you. We have another question here. Thank you very much, whoever wrote it. Let's see. Fabia. This is the question. Do you think that the recent Gaokao protests and related online debate can be seen as a change in the Chinese mindset and something to keep an eye on?
Change in the Chinese mindset. Okay, so let's go back to what I just said. The mindset they have is something that it goes back centuries. I mean, their way of doing things is something that brings on based on their tradition. So we cannot expect a change of mindset one day by another. And it is pretty much common sense to think for the Chinese people that there is someone more important than them that does the major decision for them. So the fact of having a single contestation about a single matter, it won't be a fact that will change a mindset one day by another. Nothing has changed since 1989. If we talk about the student protest in Tiananmen Square, actually nothing has changed in that purpose, but many things have changed in China since then. And nothing can be referred to that situation. But still, China became from the factor of a word to be powerful, the most powerful and innovative country in the world. And economical growth reached and surpassed the most economic developed countries around the world. So I was even wondering the other day when we got this G7 reunion, where the greatest 7 country, and there was no China, but they were talking against China, what the real meaning of that meeting was. Anyway, okay, so I can see, Eva, that you got a big orange poster. What does it say?
It says, I just joined the stream. I probably missed some parts. Can you later explain to us why you're doing these streams? What are you aiming to achieve? Who are you guys? And where do you all live?
Maybe I watch the stream again after it's over. Yes. Okay, but anyway, I don't know who asked these questions, but this is very interesting. Okay, it may be even a Chinese guy who asked these questions. Okay, so Mr. X, thank you for asking. My name is Alberto Antinucci, and back in 1988, I moved to China to sort out certain problems that I had in sourcing products and developing new one. Since then, I stayed in China doing business, running companies for myself directly and for other people who needed to sort out problems. So I was entrepreneur for myself and in partnership with other companies. So I was basically their China eyes and heart within the continent. Obviously, I started in Taiwan and then I moved immediately in China, and then it all developed to be a worldwide contest. So what I learned in these many years is that every time I was there to say I've done that's exactly the result of my life, then something changed and then it dropped down. And for the last 10 years, I decided that I was going to give back my experience to all the entrepreneurs and brands owners who wanted to enter the Chinese market. And then I wanted to advise them, to tell them what to do, and most importantly, what not to do. So this is what I do for a living. Now, the purpose of this webinar, together with Eva is, by the way, I was born and raised in Italy until the age of 18. And then I've been living most of my time abroad, mainly Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, United States, and Germany, okay, which were a few years overall. Anyway, Eva, instead, she's a Croatian fellow, but she decided to study Chinese in a Chinese university, and she moved there when she was very young, and then she decided to stay within China. And she's an entrepreneur, she's a business coordinator, and she does organize these strategies, mind mapping, and facilitating workshops within big enterprises. And when we talk about our experience, we know each other for several years, and when we talk about our experience, we thought it was going to be good to put together her experience of coordinating and facilitating meetings, together with my experience of bringing up ideas and point of views on China and business and the mindset behind it, so that you could draw a strategy. And I am doing this today for free, simply because I love to give to people. Because maybe one day, since I started to give, these people will remember me and say, oh, Alberto said me so. Thanks, Alberto, that woke me up. And that things will be the reciprocity that we will have. So we will start maybe to talk again, and we will maybe have some future together, which could be a friendship relationship, a business relationship, or simply an acquaintance. Either way, it will be a win-win situation. Did I answer your question?
I want to add to what we want to achieve with this webinars is introduce ourselves to people, experiment with collaborating online in real time using virtual collaboration tools that we also want to use for our next masterclass. So we are delivering a masterclass to build China business plan and unique China value proposition for small businesses, for startups or solopreneurs. And we are conducting this masterclass in July, and it's going to be very intense, 3 hours a day virtual workshop. So you can join from anywhere in the world, and we would like to offer discount to participants of this seminar. So if you would like to do that, you can click here on the arrow and find out more about the masterclass and what are we going to do there. So the purpose of the webinar is that as well, to create a crowd, to share the thoughts, and get people closer to creating their business plan for China.
Okay. This is great. I can read that there is another questions. Okay. This is from Egypt, and she says, thanks a lot. It is interesting. What about Miss Eva Sladic? My name is Egypt, by the way. I'm Turkish. Thank you for creating this platform. I'm sure it will be great in the future. Okay. So Egypt, she's a very good fan of you, Eva. You see, you're doing a great job. I'm a strong believer in you, in the way you facilitate things and you put things, in particular when you do it for enterprises, so smaller groups which are not so open and not so wide, because the limitation we may have today is that the people that interact with us and with us, we don't know them. So we got questions and thoughts and ideas out of the blue. That means that we will interact anyway, but we haven't got to know each other so well. But in a close contest, what Eva does is a kind of miracle. She really comes down to, make the asset of the people on the same level, so that all the confrontation can be done easily and smooth to sort out any kind of problems. Am I correct, Eva?
Yeah, correct. So this is an experiment. We wanted to move webinars into some kind of different space. Thanks, Yigit. You are he, not she. and you just put a post-it note into pink. I am loving it. Thank you very much. To be so interactive on the Miro board. So boards like Miro and tools, visual collaboration tools, can help a lot in creating common knowledge and sharing thoughts, ideas, questions in a real time, and also sharing it in a visual way. 65% of us, of people globally, are visual thinkers. So it actually helps us process and connect information much faster. So through these webinars, we want to experiment. So this is a simple experiment. That's why our board is not very elaborate. We are using very simple approach here to see what is going to happen. And I'm glad to see activity more than last time. And really it thrills me. So I can already start thinking about what can happen next time, because collaborators and facilitators in online communities are creating marvelous boards where you actually have a 3D environment inside of the board, and you can walk around and leave things and look for things. It can also be gamified. So there is many things that can happen here to help us connect virtually, at the same time share our knowledge, right? It's not about just one person talking. It's also everybody else being able to participate in real time and see what is going on.
Excellent. All right. Okay. So let's go back to the board. Do we have any new comments coming up? I mean, I am so much excited by this because people are really getting used to it. Maybe we should do a webinar but which lasts 3 hours instead of an hour and a half. What do you think?
I think that would be great with a panel of people who really want to collaborate full time. They're using the board. So we actually have prepared how to use it, what to do, what are the steps, and so on. So I think that would be possible as a workshop.
Okay. So by the way, let me give you the last update about our special guest. Looks like there is not going to be any special guest because I don't see him. He wasn't able to reach us. Most probably he had something going on. So, but anyway, we will try to find a possibility to have him on board again soon. And I see a message from Julia. Julia says, sorry, need to go now. Thanks for sharing the link when recorded. Absolutely, Julia. It will be my pleasure to share the link of the recorded panels. That's going to be fine. Okay. Maybe we
Alberto,
go a little bit. Yes.
I would like to ask you if you can share another story, interesting story that puts in this principle, be water, my friend. Why did you create this slide? Do you have a story that stands behind this slide?
Yeah, this slide is definitely a very good one. The reason why I wanted to put the slides is because I am not the man that I used to be. And I kind of sweetened myself a lot in the last several years. I mean, it's been a long journey for me. And in the years, I have learned that I had to be more soft with myself, first of all, and with the people around me. I mean, being water doesn't mean being liquid and vanish. You know, you don't need to evaporize, but you need to adapt yourself to a situation. So many times it happens that I had to take a situation to an extreme. Even on a normal life. I remember not long ago, it was 2018. My flight was supposed to arrive in Shanghai at midnight. Then there was a delay. I arrived at 1 a.m. and then there was a very long queue at the airport to clear customs. And then I was able to get downtown to my hotel at about 3 a.m. And there was a conference in town. There was an exhibition, and they gave away my room. I didn't have a room to go. I was there with my luggages, dead tired. Okay, I was trying to find a place to stay, and I even ran out of batteries from my mobile phone. So I enter a family mart, and my only intention was to ask them a plug where to recharge my batteries so that I could navigate the web and eventually find a place to stay on a C-Trip app. And instead, there was this lady at the cashier that saw me that I was that tired, and I wasn't even able to think straight on what to do because I had the tiredness, the anger about people giving away my rooms, and no place to sleep. And I had a 9 o'clock meeting, important 9 o'clock meeting to go. And so I really had to take at least a couple of hours of good sleep, a shower, and a refreshment before going to the meeting. But it was almost impossible to find a room. And then when she saw me kind of desperate, she goes like, listen, I live just around the corner. Would you like to use my bed while I work at the shop? I was like, I'm impressed by your generosity, but I don't think I can accept. She goes like, yes, you need to sleep. I can see you're tired, and there is a bed, so why don't you go and sleep? Obviously, I was traveling, with my jacket and with my luggages, and I'm a foreigner, so I have a certain impact to local Chinese. But she didn't mind about showing to me what was her domicile. And she was having a room under the stairs of a big building, of an old building, and the toilet were in the open garden. And obviously it was much less than I thought I could possibly find, but really much less. But her way to offer this to me was genuine from her heart. She knew I needed to sleep somewhere, and she understood that she was the only option I had that specific day, at that specific time, and that specific moment. And I put myself in her shoes, and I said, okay, she's doing it out of generosity. Okay, what else can I do if not accept it? Otherwise, I may let her lose her face because I don't consider her place where she lives enough qualified for my position. Well, I accepted. Obviously, I lay down on the bed, and I couldn't use the open toilet. But then I went down to sleep 3 hours, which were very, very refreshing for me, so that I could go on the day after and obtain the result that I was there to obtain. Now, why am I telling you this story? Am I telling you this story because sometimes simplicity comes over everything, and perfect is never fast enough in China, and you need to adapt yourself to the situation. Now, I have given you this example of a very personal situation I had, and I didn't make an example in terms of business because this is where we need to start, from ourselves. If we are able to lower down our expectation for a greater good, and my greater good was getting rested the morning after. Her greater good was making a good action. She was, at the end of the day, she was the best Samaritan I ever met. And obviously, I left her some money on the desk when I left. I went back to the shop. I wanted to buy some water, but when I arrived at the shop, she already quit her shift, so I wasn't able to meet her. So we didn't see each other. I wasn't able to thank her for the action. But I did that 3 weeks later when I got back to Shanghai. And she recognized me, and she wanted to give me back the money because she didn't ask for money. And I said, I didn't leave you money because I wanted to pay you for the service you give me. I give you money because maybe you have a baby and you want to buy a toy for him. And that was it. So I want to give you a present. And then she accepted the money. So I was able to, downgrade my status of a foreigner that goes and lives in a 5-star hotel in Shanghai and go and sleep for one night under stairs of an old building in the French Quarter, and then being happy about it. She made my day. So be water, my friends. The universe is with you, and if I open a door, just take it and be open to accept what the universe brings and what the situation is going to be. This is the only way you can win in China. China is not a place for faint-hearted, it's not a place for people who want to achieve everything immediately now. China is a place for people who wants to go on a long run, on a long term. And if you're not thinking about China today, you're making a big mistake, because it doesn't matter you want to go to China to sell or to buy products. Tomorrow, the Chinese will come to you and knock at your door. And if you're not ready, they'll dismiss you and you're out of the game. So you need to think about your China strategy today for any possible reason. And this is such an important and strong message that I want to give. And that's the reason why we created this masterclass. And everything starts from knowing who you are and what you do. And then tell people who you are, tell people what you do, and let people talk about you. So if you put in place these 3 simple steps, you will be able to manage your China strategy with the courage and greatness of results. But if you think that you just can pick up the phone, make a few calls, and being polite sometimes, and yeah, too expensive, put down, okay? Or no, who do you think you are, okay? You don't know who I am, or these kind of things. And we have seen it, we have seen it so many times. Okay, then we don't understand anything about China. But don't worry, I'm here to explain to you. This is my purpose today. I've been working 33 years to be here today to tell you exactly what your mistake is and where you should enact your actions for your China strategies. Because at the end of a masterclass, you will have a business plan. But if you follow and if you adapt it time to time, you will see that your business will succeed in the environment that we will choose to work with, which is China.
Thank you for the story, Alberto. You also have a comment on board.
We have Gene. I think I'm gonna bring him online. Gene, are you there? Here you are. Hello, Gene.
Did I get the time wrong? I set my
absolutely alarm wrong, Gene. You're about an hour and 15 minutes late.
Man, I'm sorry, my friend. When we did the rehearsal, we discussed. I said 5:30 a.m. my time.
Yeah, but hold on. I said 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock p.m. Central European time and 7 p.m. Hong Kong time. But that was the great things about going live. We manage it. So anyway, welcome, Gene. Well, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, I was actually taking my time. I thought I had more time. So I logged in and then I saw you were already going.
But anyway, I talk about you, and I talk about you being a Chinese American who had the privilege of be born in America and grew up in America, and then going to China for an American company, trying to sort out business there. And then you started to understand how different their mentality was. Even thought you could speak the language and you could basically understand everything they say and they talk about. Would you like to go on with the
Yes. So again, my apologies to everyone. That's one of the.
Don't worry, forget about it. We are all grown up, but we know things happen. It's okay.
It's one of the crazy things about America that we have time zone changes and daylight savings time. But anyway, so I can't actually see who's on, but Alberto invited me today to talk about a Chinese mindset. So I want to try to spend 15 minutes real quick to try to put everybody in the right state of mind. And from my experience, usually when I talk to non-Chinese about a Chinese mindset, most people, I think, don't have a deep enough understanding. And what do I mean by that? So most people, when they think of a Chinese mindset, they think, okay, do I understand Chinese culture? Do I understand Chinese guanxi, which everybody has heard of? And do I understand the giving and receiving of face, or mianzi? Because I've heard that in China, giving face is really important. But to me, a Chinese mindset means two things that I think a lot of people kind of overlook. One is being aware of what I call China, or foreigners in China encounter, is that these China myths, these things we believe, or these things that we've heard about how Chinese people behave and what you need to protect yourself against, it influences us. It creates biases. Sometimes it even creates prejudices, and it affects our attitude and our mindset, which is what Chinese people perceive when you are communicating with them. And number two, a Chinese mindset means another thing. It means that you have the psychological capability and willingness to make a choice. And that is to choose making progress with your Chinese counterparts versus what most people do, which is to satisfy their own ego, because they believe something to be true, they believe something to be right, and they have a certain belief system. And if they somehow sense that the Chinese on the other side don't think or feel the same way, then they will have a conversation to try to consciously or subconsciously convince the person on the other side. And to me, that is not a healthy mindset for China business. So today, I'm sorry I came in late, but I want to talk about 3 words for everybody to remember. It doesn't matter how much experience you have in China. There's always areas where you can improve how you communicate. Okay, so the 3 words are this. Number 1 is China. Number 2 is myth. And number 3 is dilemma. Okay, so the word China, why is that important? Because if you're non-Chinese, if you're a Westerner, if you're an American like me, it's important to understand the Chinese cultural dichotomies with the West. So what is that? That means, what are the fundamental differences in culture and how people think and what their values are? Okay, that's number 1. That's the first word. The second word is myth. Myth is self-awareness, cultural awareness. It's being aware of our misperceptions, our unknown unknowns, the things we don't know when we go to a foreign culture, and false known knowns, which are things that we actually think are true because we believe them to be true, but when you go to a different culture like China, they're actually not true. Okay, and this creates for the third word is a dilemma. Okay, and that dilemma is a question that every one of us has to learn how to answer, and that is, how do we reconcile in our own minds, in our own hearts, choosing to make progress over satisfying our egos? Okay, that's one of the things that those 3 words, the China, myth, dilemma. If we can keep those 3 words in mind when we're working with our next project, with our next Chinese partner, or negotiating with somebody in China, that will help you really understand how they behave and how to respond in order to get a better outcome. Okay, so I'm going to go real quickly, examples of these 3 words. So the first one is China, which we talk about and means a Chinese cultural dichotomy with the West. So one cultural dichotomy is truth, the fundamental definition of what is true and what is not true. When you realize that this is a cultural dichotomy, then you understand why communication sometimes becomes so frustrating. So in the cultural dichotomy of truth, for Westerners, we believe more in an absolute truth. It's either right or wrong. It's either true or false. But in China, the Chinese mind thinks more in terms of relative truths. Okay. And when one side is talking in absolute truths and the other side is talking in relative truths, this leads to a lot of circular conversations. Okay. So this is where foreigners in China get really frustrated and they feel like the conversations just keep going round and round. They don't go anywhere. Well, that might be because you're trying to align on something, whether it's true or false, but one person is talking in absolutes and the other person thinks in relative terms. So this creates all kinds of problems for you as the business person if you aren't able to condition yourself to handle something that's more ambiguous, right? You need a specific answer, yes or no. That can create some problems, okay? This also creates problems with another cultural dichotomy, which is fundamental to business, and that's trust, okay? So let me kind of put this into perspective of what the mindset differences are. So for most Westerners, and you can think about this question yourself, how do you decide whether you want to trust someone else or not? What are the criteria that you have? So if you're like me, an American, or most Westerners, I think, you trust people who you believe are honest, who are generous. You also want to trust people who you think are hardworking and not lazy. And maybe you trust people that are humble, okay? And I think it's a word that we use a lot these days is you trust people who you think are authentic, okay? So there's a whole bunch of different words. You probably have your own words on what defines someone who is trustworthy. Now, for most Chinese people, and I've observed this, and I'm sure Alberto has observed this, Chinese people trust people based on something different. They trust people based on the likelihood that the other person will exchange favors or goodwill. That's who they trust. They trust people who they believe can share connections or referrals for opportunities and deals. And they trust people who they believe will give them kind of inside information and throughout the relationship will give them face. So all the things that I described, this is what Chinese people trust, especially in business. But in another way of saying all the things that I said, they want to do business with people. They have guanxi because everything that I just described are the cornerstones of guanxi. The exchange of favors and goodwill and reciprocity, the referrals and the connections to other people who can help you make decisions or get things done, and the sharing of inside information and the giving and receiving of face. These are all the things that you need to do to develop guanxi. But it's also, if you think about it, this is what Chinese people trust in other people. And so the consequences, I think, if you're not really paying attention to those three words, China, the cultural dichotomies, myth, which is the difference between what you believe and what the reality on the ground in China is, okay? And the dilemma, which means that you have to debate with the other person and convince them why you're doing something and why you're right. This is resulting in a lack of mutual trust. And what happens is you have these negative patterns of interaction. So the keys to success, and I'm going to wrap this up right now, is to have in the back of your mind a little bit greater awareness and think about, because if you're doing business in China a long time and you're regularly frustrated with circular conversations, my friends, try to create more positive and constructive communication and interaction patterns by understanding how Chinese people think and what the difference is in how you think are. And I think you're going to achieve a much better result.
Excellent. That's That's more or less what I tried to cover when you were not available to be online. Anyway, we got Egypt with one question, okay? And his question is this: isn't China still the dilemma of the West? West would never fully understand China if it keep pushing China to understand the Western mindset.
So, can I take a shot at this question first?
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll follow it.
Yeah. So I think, yes, you're exactly right. This is a dilemma of the West. But what I really tried to talk about is the dilemma of the individual. So as business people doing business in China, we have to separate what's happening at the macro level, the geopolitical level, what President Biden and President Xi are going to ultimately do or not do together. Business is going to continue. And part of this awareness is how does what is being reported in the media, even if you're against state-controlled media and propaganda coming out of the China CCTV, you have to kind of understand in the background how the Chinese person may think. Are they nationalistic? How do they feel about what's going on in geopolitics? And then you have to condition yourself not to let it affect how you develop your individual personal guanxi relationships with your counterparts. This is the biggest mistake that I see, is that we as Americans and Westerners, we let what is reported in the news and what's happening at the geopolitical level affect our biases at the individual level. And that kind of hurts our ability to enter into a better working relationship. Absolutely.
Let me add you one thing. Let me add this. Whenever I see the West going to China and telling them, you're doing it wrong, you need to change things, you need to be more liberal, you need to be more democratic, you need to be more this, more that, more on, And it sounds always like a 5-year-old kid who comes to me, that I'm 50 now, and tells me, you need to be different. You're doing it wrong. You're not doing the right things at business, okay? Whatever you have done so far didn't bring any good results. With a little difference that, and why I say 5 years old and I'm 50, it's because of the, America, the West, as we know it, okay, is 274 years old, while China is 2,700 years old, okay? So, but the things are different somehow. And there is this kind of logical aspects within it. But you see, thing is that everybody thinks that they are on the right side of a word, okay? But there is no right side. The word is rounded. There is not a side in the word. And this is why, exactly as you said before, I was telling people the stories that need to start from your inner ego. What do you think and what do you want to be, and where do you want to put yourself in the ecosystems? So that only starting from there, you can really understand what's going on within the Chinese and their mindset of scoring the goals. They have so much anger, much more than we do in terms of achieving results, that they'll do anything just because they've been taught to do anything. Like my example before with the Gaokao, rushing to get the results for being admitted at university. Okay, they'll do anything. They'll study day, nights. They will not sleep. They will keep themselves awake and do really everything possible just to get admitted to university. So if they're able to sacrifice themselves just for the university, think about it when it comes to business. They'll do anything. And this is why we need to understand this position. It's not just a matter of trading. It's much more involved. It's much more involved in everything when we deal with them. And it's not just, Chinese thinks differently or so on. Chinese have a beautiful mind. And sometimes we don't see it. And this is our problem. And being blind doesn't help us to get in the results. So thank you, Egypt, for your question. I hope we gave you some answers. Okay. Eva, do you want to share something with us? Like this, okay? beautiful screen. Go ahead. Tell us what you come up with.
I would like if Jin could share some of the most common myths that he surfaced.
Okay, Jin.
Well, yeah. So I think there's all kinds of myths, but the most common myth that I hear, and I think by giving this example, people will start to understand what I mean by myth. So a lot of so-called China experts or people who've been experienced doing business in China a long time, they'll give one piece of advice, and they'll say, when you go to China, things happen in Chinatown, which means they happen really quickly, and if you can't respond fast enough, you're not going to be able to succeed in China. So there's almost been this term that's come out called Chinatown. And it gives the impression to the Westerner that if you have to be able to adapt, which a lot of China consultants and traders and experts use that word, you have to adapt, and you have to adapt quickly. So actually, I think that's a myth, because that creates the impression that Chinese people, so business does move fast. But what I think actually creates business is the mindset. And the foundation of business with China is the relationship, which requires patience. So if your mindset is that everything has to go fast and you have to negotiate fast, you have to get answers fast, that creates kind of the wrong mindset of having the patience to develop the relationship. There's another myth that I think is even more direct, is a lot of people talk about kind of like, they think Chinese negotiators use tricks. And I've actually read this question on Kurura before, where people are posting, do you think, what kind of tricks do quote unquote Chinese negotiators use to manipulate their Western counterparts to get what they want? And I believe that's a myth, because I think that's, again, the wrong mindset, that Chinese people use tricks. Now, sometimes you may think they delay, they're non-committal, they're vague. The problem is that Westerners have been studying Chinese culture and Chinese history for thousands of years. We know about Sun Tzu and the art of war. We know about Confucius and the respect for harmony and hierarchy. And all of this has become kind of deeply embedded in the Chinese mindset. And when we think these become truths, you have to move at China speed, or Chinese people use tricks to win in negotiations. When that's embedded in our mind, that creates something that actually hurts what's really important, which is, I think, taking the patience to develop the trust and the guanxi relationship.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your words. I couldn't have said it better. Eva, is there any other questions you'd like to talk about, or any question that came up after Jean intervention?
No, we don't see any questions on the board anymore. Thank you, Jin, for this. It's very insightful for me as well.
Unfortunately, we got some people that needed to go back to work, so they say goodbye to us. I still see that we got quite some folk listening to us, so I'm very happy to keep them engaged. That means that we got something to tell. And yes, okay, Jean, would you like to tell us a bit about your book? I know you're writing a book.
Yes. So I'm writing a book called Solving China's Unknown Unknowns. And this book is basically taking my 20 years of experience and dissecting all the mistakes that I made because of my own ego, because of my own lack of awareness, and analyzing it in the proper cultural context through these stories that really will help the reader understand the nuances of why some things in China work and some things in China don't work. And China, we talk about China speed and China being a land of, contradiction. So China is moving extremely fast. So in you do have to really understand China's speed and how fast it moves. But the Chinese mindset, how the individual Chinese person thinks, really, they have certain beliefs and cultural beliefs that have not changed for thousands of years. So the question for most Westerners, and the reason that we get confused, is how do you reconcile that? China's moving so fast, and you have this young generation of Chinese people that seem to have abandoned all Chinese traditions. How do you reconcile that? That's the perception. And then fundamentally, when you're dealing with people in China, your counterparts on the other side, they still follow a lot of traditional Chinese cultural needs. And the biggest need is the need for face. The giving and receiving of face is one of the most important things. And when you understand how to give and receive face in the proper Chinese cultural context, that will also take you far.
Okay, good. Gene, I've got a questions from China Communication. Okay, let me read it for you. Hi, Gene. Thank you for your interesting content. In your opinion, the Shenzhou look like how influences the business relations or the Shenzhou actor in advance give product different perception. Okay, Shenzhou looks like a banana. Okay, so the fact that you are yellow outside and white inside, I hope I'm getting it correct from China Communication.
Well, this is a great question because one of the things that I think is really important for everybody who's doing business anywhere in the world is self-awareness. Okay, so the fact that I am ethnically Chinese, but born and raised in the United States, they call me a banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. Self-awareness is important because when I go to China and I speak fluent Mandarin Chinese and I look Chinese, there's going to be a different level of expectation from the person in China that I'm communicating with. If I look like Brad Pitt, blonde hair, blue eyes, the Chinese would have no expectation that I speak Chinese or understand their culture. So in a new relationship, I start from a different level of expectation than someone who is blonde hair and blue eye. So for anyone, when you're doing business across any culture, the key is to have that level of self-awareness, which means I care to understand how someone is perceiving me based on who they think I am. Okay. If I go in and I speak with a British accent and I don't speak Chinese, they may think I have a certain level of prejudice or belief because I'm British. Okay. British has a really bad colonial history with China.
Well, they got some issue in the past.
Yeah. So while in business, people don't care about that, in relationships, you have to be careful how people might subconsciously perceive you in the back of their mind and maybe choose to avoid certain sensitive topics. And that might be another way to help put that into context. I'm a banana. I have to work harder to satisfy the expectations of my Chinese counterparts because they think I should be Chinese because I have Chinese blood and I speak Chinese. Why do I not think the same way as them?
Yeah, but do you think between let's make it real, okay? Between you and me, okay? And when I say you and me, and I mean your yellow face and my pale white face, okay? But your whiteness inside and my yellowness inside. And I want to have Eva as a judge, okay? But
right.
between you, who is the most advantaged one? Because I do have the same problems. I am white outside. People do not expect anything. And most of the times during the first approach, in business, I even don't show off that I'm fluent in Chinese and I understand what they're doing. I use it as a, let's call it a secret weapon that never works, because, you know, the first things wrong that they say, I go like, yeah, 这样子不可以做. Okay, and so they go like, oh, you speak good Chinese, and I say, no, sorry. I just can say that you cannot do that. Okay, but anyway, the thing is, how do you think you and I can have advantages one to the other? Am I advantage in certain situation being a white outside with the yellowness inside, or are you more advantage with your yellow outside and being white inside?
Yeah. So again, that's another great question for any listener who's going into China. Okay. So Alberto has certain advantages when he goes to China because he speaks and understands the language and the culture. So when he's meeting somebody new, they may not have that expectation of him because he doesn't look Chinese. I may not have that same advantage because they would have a higher expectation of me. But what I'm trying to communicate to everyone on the call and everyone who listens to the replay is that little bit of advantage one way or the other. So let's just say you're not Chinese, you've never been to China, you don't understand anything about Chinese culture, you don't speak Chinese language, you're going there for the very first time. There is an advantage to that because your naivety is the key to unlocking a different level of trust. Okay. What does that mean? That means if you don't understand what's going on and you don't speak the language, the key to your success is to be curious.
Good. Fantastic.
The opposite of being, and everybody needs to put this into context, the opposite of being curious is to be judgmental.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Just be curious, my friend. I mean, that's even more important than being water. Absolutely. And the Egypt, he sent us his comment saying face. He said, Gene is right. That's definitely very important in China when it comes to business. Not just the business, but maybe the whole life. I mean, face is everything. I remember a scene that it happened to me once. I was on a hot springs and I was checking out the situation. I was with my wife. This is a very funny story. And the hot springs was divided into, female section and male section. And I went into the male section and it was a very big place. And then my wife went into the female section and then she came out immediately because there was only a small room, okay? And so she came into the male session and then looking for me, and then she found out herself surrounded with naked Chinese men who covered their face and ran behind her. And she starts screaming like, help. I got tens of naked Chinese men covering their faces, running behind me. It was so funny. And she asked me, but why didn't they cover their own parts instead of covering their face? And I said, because once they dress up, you recognize them by their face, not by their personal adjectives. Okay. And that's the very things that really happened to me. It was a very important thing that I could still laugh at it right now. I mean, it's been hilarious my whole life. All right. Okay. So thank you, Jill, again for your comments. I think we are pretty much over the time limit that we gave to each other. If there is any other questions coming in from YouTube or Facebook, by the way, we weren't able to go live on LinkedIn, so technical problems. But if there is anything coming up from the mirror board, did you read anything, Eva?
Nothing on a Miro board at the moment, but I just want to say to all participants and listeners, Miro board will stay open. And feel free to add thoughts, comments on this board, even after the seminar, this webinar, before the next one. So we're going to have a next webinar next week. Join us in that as well.
Okay,
if you're interested in a business plan masterclass, reach out to us if you have any questions through the website here.
Perfect. Okay, so let me give a short anticipation about next week webinar. We will talk about strategy. What does it mean? In having a strategy in China is everything. I said it many times, and we will come up with more details, solutions on how to organize a strategy on a long term. Okay, we will have a very special guest. His name is Josh Gardner. He is a communication and a marketing agency in Hong Kong and China, and he's taking care of very large account on their marketplaces account. So he can give us a lot of insights of how things work in the digital world in China. So thank you, Jean, very much for being with us and sharing your wisdom. If anybody is looking for Jean, he is available on LinkedIn. Just look for Jean, GENEJ.SHU, Shu. Mr. Shu, it will be excellently. And yes, you can find us on LinkedIn. Me, you have all my contacts already, and Eva, we're available. There will be this masterclass that we will start very soon. I guess that if you're subscribed, maybe we will send you some information with more detail about the masterclass soon. In the meantime, stay tuned. Next week, same time, which is going to be 1 p.m. European Central Time, 7 p.m. Hong Kong and Beijing time. And frankly speaking, I'm confused about the American time. I really don't know. Whatever is going to be in Pacific Standard Time is going to be. We will make our calculation to be right and also try to overcome the technical issues we had to go live on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. It's been a pleasure. I am going to turn off the broadcast. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
再见。
再见。